Welcome everyone to the very first episode of Bullish Project. If you do not know who I am, my name is Brett. I currently live in northern Kentucky next to Cincinnati, Ohio. So I'm on the Ohio-Kentucky border and I work in Cincinnati as a sales rep. And in my free time, I like to do things like investing. So crypto, stocks, NFTs, you name it, I'm all over it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I also like to do things like disc golf or golf. So those outside activities are also pretty interesting to me. Disc golf especially, like it's 66 outside. And this morning in Cincinnati, it was 30 degrees out or something similar to that. It was cold. It was cold enough for me to need a jacket. I know that. So like if you live in the Midwest, you know how the weather is and how it can fluctuate. I'm very excited to get out today to play some disc golf. And actually, when I'm done recording this, that is what I'm going to be doing. I also like to play video games. I'm a big gamer for sure. Like, if I had to guess how much time I've put into video games, it is more than I'm willing to admit for sure. So I love video games. I also love doing some shows here. So I love to go to some shows, and I just pointed to the flag behind me for those who are on YouTube and can see that. But I also have an Excision shirt on. So if you recognize Virtual Riot or Excision, I love you so much. That whole scene is just amazing and it changed my life. So I'm very thankful for that. That's what I'd love to do for the most part, is go to shows. It's like I can do that all year round. I don't have to wait for the summer. Like the disc golf, I kind of have to wait for the summer because it's going to be warm out. I can just do that whenever because it's indoors. It's amazing. Other than that, pizza, to kind of switch the subject very blatantly here, pizza is one of my favorite foods of all time. And today is actually 3/14, which is Pi Day, 3.14. And I'm definitely going to be getting some pizza later. So today is going to be a great day. It's warm out. It's like the first sign of summer-ish vibes. I'm ready for it. I'm so ready for it. But today we're going to start with this podcast. So episode 1, you already know, everyone starts at zero, title of the podcast. Basic theme of what I wanted to kind of share with you guys on today's episode is just that. It's that simple. Everyone starts at zero, and to just put in the work to make that first step is very important. And here I am doing episode 1, and I never thought I'd even get this far. I have a lot of ideas in my head where I'm like, oh, this would be so cool. And I don't really follow through with most of them. But the podcast was very interesting to me because in addition to all the other things I just mentioned, I also like to sit with my thoughts, think very deeply, and listen as well. So when I interact with people, I like to listen to their perspective and kind of put myself in their shoes, and not necessarily compare it to my perspective, but to just get an idea of what other people are thinking. And I realized over the last couple of years, especially since COVID, the majority of people that I interact with do not have the same perspective as me. And not that that's a bad thing, it's just I kind of realized I was a little different in that sense. And even in high school, I grew up in a rural Kentucky area. And even in high school, I was kind of like that. I didn't really fit in with the popular kids or the cool kids, or no offense, but the band nerds. I wasn't a band nerd, which band nerds, I love you guys, by the way. Or really anybody. Like the video game nerds was kind of where I fit in. And most of those people didn't even really play the same games as me. So I was kind of a loner in school, and I did have some people that I interacted with, but I was also a very different person back then, very negative, very just awful in general. Like I was going through some tough times, very depressing thoughts as well. And I am just a complete 180 of that person, and here to share my thoughts with you today. So basically, I want to transition into my first topic, which is actually something more recent in the news here. And those of you who are on YouTube will be able to see this, but I'll describe it for people who are listening. So essentially, this article I have here is talking about the whole Kim Kardashian scandal. And me personally, I don't think the same way as other people do. My opinion is very unpopular, so I hear anyway. Especially with the few people that I've talked to about it, and all of these people, as you guys can see, that are just roasting her. But basically, if you don't know what happened, she said to women in business, somebody asked her what her advice was for women in business. And she said, "Oh, I have the best advice, and it's get up and go work." Which she said it much more aggressive than that, but I just summarized. And like all of these people, like for example, this person said, "People keep saying nobody wants to work these days, but I keep hearing nobody wants to be exploited these days." And that is very true. That is very true. And it's like, because I kind of see both sides. Again, like I listen first and I put myself in everybody's shoes. So when people are saying things, I can understand for the most part why they say that. But Kim Kardashian is not wrong here. Like sometimes in life, we just overcomplicate things, right? Back to the theme of the episode, like if you are trying to start something, start a business, start whatever you're trying to start, like for me, I'm actually on this journey myself. So this advice I could take, start a podcast. The first thing you got to do is just start working, right? Because you don't know what you don't know and you don't have the experience to just start out as a professional podcaster or a professional entrepreneur or whatever. You have to taste things and you have to really go through, find what you like, and follow through with it. Like really put in the work and truly know that you put in the work, not just say that. And that's what she's trying to say here. Like basically saying nobody wants to work these days. And I think people took that as working, because there's a lot of people that work hard. I know a lot of people that work hard, myself included, to get to where I am today. I used to be the person who was working two jobs just to make ends meet. And in that article, essentially, that's what people are talking about. Well, what about the people that can barely make ends meet? And I'm just like, that used to be me. And I'm not, like, that's not my perspective. So something's wrong there. Like, it's just, you gotta just take a step back and realize that the world is not all about you. Not even that long ago, I was in a position where I had to work two full jobs. Not full-time jobs, but two full jobs. Like I was working 20 hours a week once and on the one job and 40 hours a week on the other job for like 6 months straight. The only 2 days I had off were holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I did that to make ends meet. I was living paycheck to paycheck for sure, and even going into debt in some cases. But all it took was for me to work, right? Not work in the sense of, oh, because I was already working 60 hours a week. Work in the sense of sharpen your skills or, find somebody who can get you to the next step. So you kind of have to know how to hold a conversation. And if you don't, you kind of have to train yourself to be that way. Because I can understand if you're not social and stuff. I used to not be social. But the whole theme of it is like, if you're going to make an excuse about one thing, then you'll make an excuse about everything. People are like, oh, I want to start a podcast. And you're like, okay, do you have a phone? Like, start right now. And that used to be me, right? Because I had to order this special mic. I thought everything needed to be perfect. I'm actually on my 60th or so take on this podcast because I want it all to be perfect. And it comes down to the fact that nothing is perfect and nobody is perfect. So I'm trying to like take some of my own advice here because I'm going through that same journey with the people watching this who think that way. The moral of the story is you can't get caught up in excuses and excuses and excuses. Oh, well, I have this, I have this, I have this, and I can't do that. Just switch it. Switch it real quick for me. Go from I can't to I can. And I know that's cliche to say, but it's true. You can do that. Like when you wake up, you're like, oh, I gotta go to work. And for most people, like if you hate your job, of course you're gonna say that. But you have to get into a position where you've tasted so many things to where you know what you want to do, and then you just have to fight and fight and fight to get to that industry or that dream job or whatever it is. Whether you need a college degree, whatever it is, you need to first, you got to figure out what you want to do, and then you got to go through that path, right? You have to put in the work. And ultimately, Kim K said it in a very aggressive way. I think that's what set most people apart from that. Like most people think that she didn't really have the credibility to say that. She wasn't even self-made, right? And that's why most people are upset. She's not even the type of person to be saying that, but her advice isn't untrue. And when you start to look at it as what you can take from it versus what you can judge other people for, it just switches. It's so crazy. Like, I was not upset by this statement, and I've been the person that struggles before. I'm currently not struggling, but that doesn't mean I haven't. And this kind of stuff never really bothered me. So that's just my perspective. My whole job here is not to like change your perspective, but it's just to offer you a newer perspective. Like, put yourself in other people's shoes, put yourself in my shoes, I'll put myself in your shoes, and just kind of open up a little bit. Because sorry about that, the police are going crazy. Because like I said, if you're going to make one excuse, you'll make a million excuses, and it's just that cycle, right? I had to break out of that cycle, because for me to even start this podcast, I was like, oh, well, I need this, I need this, I need this. And it's an everyday battle for me too, because I've gotten to the point where I'm no longer worried about what other people think of me. I'm worried about what I think of me. And, sometimes I want to be a perfectionist or whatever, but I do not care what other people think about me, good or bad. I totally love when people say great things to me. And I totally love when people say mean things to me, just because I know that it's like, it's fueling for me when somebody thinks I can't do it. So that basically, to sum it all up here with this article and this whole Kim K stuff, like, she's not wrong. And even if she isn't the ideal person to be saying that, it's still true advice. We just overthink things, right? Get to work. And if you don't know what to start on, literally Google it. I'm sure most people watching this have a phone. Most people listening to this are listening to this on a phone. You have tools. It's 2022. Like, there is no excuse in 2022 to not at least Google what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, then you have to go out there and taste stuff, right? So that's just my main point there. And like, the same is true with gas prices right now. I had a conversation with a former coworker of mine who was like, "Oh, it's not just gas prices; it's cost of living, and poor me, poor me." And granted, he wasn't even somebody who is struggling, but if you have that mentality, you'll never break out of it. It's like that with everything. I used to be that person who was struggling, so I'm not like looking down on the people that are struggling, or looking down on the people that think a different way. I'm just trying to offer my perspective. And I think that the more that you surround yourself with positive people, or positive mindsets, or people who want to work, like what Kim Kardashian said, the more productive you'll be, and the more successful you are likely to be. So just think about that. But these gas prices, I've seen so many people, they're like, oh, gas price is this, gas price is that. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Not get gas? I mean, it's just like the same. Oh, well, the cost of living's going up. Well, what am I going to do? Not live? And like, not to be dark here, but I used to be in a position where I kind of thought like, oh, depressing thoughts and stuff, where I was like not really wanting to live anymore. And I'm fortunate enough to not have those thoughts. But like, what am I going to do? Not get gas? Like, I have to get gas to go to work. I can't really pay attention too much to the gas price. What I can do is, if I'm not making enough money to afford the gas, then I can work on my skills to get a better raise to afford the gas. And even if you are not in a position to get a better job, you can look at your expenses dollar for dollar and cut expenses. Most people are spending money on things they don't need to be spending it on. That's just the truth. Like, I do it all the time. I go out once a week, twice a month, or whatever it is, and I spend money I shouldn't on that, but it's because it's something I enjoy. I find the money to spend on it. But you can't forget the money that you need to use on things that you need as well. So it's a balance. So that kind of all ties into like the excuse thing. Like, just, where does it stop if you're always going to make excuses? That's just my main point. And like, all you need to do is put your head down and get to work, right? Everybody's in this world to learn and grow, right? I'm not perfect. I'm not the best podcaster. This is my first episode, but I feel like my thoughts are important because I've seen both sides of it. And I do agree with a lot of these opinions like, oh, um, it's like the average person is just getting shit on, and I agree with that. Like that's just how it is, but like that won't change. So you need to like go out there and better yourself to get the life that you want, to be successful. And my advice on that would be look at your inner circle first. Like look at yourself. I spent so much time during COVID just self-reflecting, like why do I do certain things, what am I really looking for in life, and what do I find the most enjoyable. And I came to a conclusion that if I can just force myself to get through those negative thoughts sometimes, then I can be more rewarded when I have positive thoughts and I'm on top and successful and doing good at work and having good relationships with my friends and family and all that. It's just the bad times that you kind of have to get through, right? Everybody has bad times. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, man, I'm so grateful to have the family and friends that I have. And as long as nobody is in poor health or dire need, I'm good, you know? So that's just the kind of mindset I have. And I really don't see that amongst a lot of the people I interact with. And it's very sad. Most people are like blaming other things. And I think taking accountability and just getting to work and only focusing on what you can control is, what you can control, literally. Like, I think that is a great place to start, especially when it comes to bettering yourself and putting yourself in a position to be successful, or to be able to afford the gas prices or get the dream job, whatever it is that you might want. But you have to start with what you want. And if you don't know what you want, then you have to take a step further and find what you want. You have to taste things. So, sorry if this is like repetitive, but it's true. It's like, it sounds cliche, but it's true. And this is like my 60th take on this podcast. Like I said before, I'm not redoing it. So if it's bad, I'm just going to keep going through it and I'm just going to get better the next time. That's all I can do. But essentially, this bullish project that I have in my mind stemmed from all those things I just talked about. And it mainly stems from my interest in finance as well. Like the stocks I was talking about earlier, when something is bullish, essentially, what that means is even though it can go up or down day to day, or even go down in a 3 month, 6 month span, the idea is that if you're bullish on something, it's always going to go back up and it's always going to end up on top further than it was before. And that's applicable to life too. So this particular project is mainly just to spread the happiness that I know I can spread and the motivation that I know I can spread, and even use myself. Like when I need motivation, I might just flip on my podcast and look at this later. But Gary Vaynerchuk is a big inspiration for me, and he kind of flipped my mindset. So I owe it to other people to kind of spread the way that I think, and let people kind of decide for themselves if they want to think that way or not. And Gary Vaynerchuk, if you guys are familiar, he posted something on Instagram either today or yesterday, and he said something about keep spreading that happiness, or if you have happiness, then choose to spread it. And that's just what I'm doing here in this podcast. So basically, that is the moral of the story for the first episode. I don't want to get into deep because I have a lot of other ideas and topics that I want to talk about in the next few episodes. But I think that that is a good place to start. If you are looking at other people and blaming them for this or that instead of looking at yourself, then you are doing yourself a disservice, because you're basically letting them control how you act. Like if you're blaming somebody else for something, then if imagine if they just didn't do the thing that you're blaming them for, then what? Would it be something else, or would it be them controlling how you act? Like if you take accountability, then you're in control of how your life is, and you don't have to wait for somebody to do something in order to be successful or to take that next step or whatever it is. So, moral of the story is take accountability. Remember that everybody starts at zero. Everybody has either an advantage or a disadvantage. In this case, Kim Kardashian has an advantage, and that doesn't change. Life isn't fair, right? Everybody has different starting points, but it's all zero for the most part because everybody has to be born first. And if you think like that, when you are just truly grateful to be alive because you know that the odds of even being born is like 400 trillion to 1 or something like that, then all of your worries just kind of go away. It's like a weird, like, feeling. It's just like the weight of the world is no longer on your shoulders when you like the less you worry about, the less you have to like carry on your shoulders. Like the weight of the world is coming off your shoulders. So, if you made it this far, I just want to thank you for watching or listening to the first episode. If you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Shameless plug, which is the email that I made for this podcast. That is bullishprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you know me personally, you can hit me up on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. I made pages for the podcast as well, and I will be posting on Instagram some motivational stuff so you can interact with me there on a daily basis versus the podcast, which is a weekly basis. And I'm going to try to post these on Monday just because I think Monday motivation is a great way to start off the week. Most people hate Mondays. I am someone who actually loves Mondays because it's like a start to the week, even though I'm in retail. So like my weeks fluctuate, but Mondays for me are just an idea of just getting the week started on a good note instead of the opposite. So if you like this podcast, then please follow it. I'm on Spotify, Anchor, all these different platforms. You can check it out there. But please like it and follow it. That's gonna really help me grow this podcast. And if you think somebody can get something out of this podcast, share it with them. Right? I have friends in my personal life that are struggling, and I do my best to give them similar advice that I give on this podcast. And just because everybody needs to lift up every now and then again, even myself, like I need to lift up every now and then. So if somebody needs to hear something like this, let them know, share this podcast with them. And shout out to my boy Dave, who is my main inspiration for this podcast. Absolute stellar man. Appreciate you, man. If you are making it this far, again, go check out his podcast. It's called Just Last Week, and it's on Spotify, Apple, you name it, it's on there. Go check it out. And that's going to do it for this episode. So I will see you next Monday for the next one. Until then, take care of yourself. Be happy as much as you can be, and try to switch that mindset a little bit. Surround yourself with more positive things, more positive ideas, and you'll get there, I promise. I'll see you guys later. Peace.